on September, that's the wrong one, September 23rd, 2024. Welcome. Let's call to order. Pledge allegiance. John?
Don't. I'll just whip you around here. Turn you around and look at it. Right. We're done.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have item 3, presentations and recognitions. Staff, it looks like Mark is in charge. Is that right? No, Mark Howard, or Dr. Wilson is, excuse me, Dr. Wilson, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a pleasure to see you tonight. One of the things that you all have asked us to do, which I very much appreciate, always bringing us back to these opportunities, is to celebrate our students, but also to celebrate our staff. We know that we have exceptional students, but part of the reason why we have exceptional students and we have an exceptional organization is because we have exceptional staff. And so tonight we're here to recognize one of our staff members who has gone above and beyond in ways that I don't know that we can completely communicate tonight. But in order to do that, though, I'd like to ask Mr. Casaro to come and recognize the individual.
Governing board members, member of the governing board, thank you for having me here. So I'd like to say a few words about Mark Howard. So Mark Howard is one of the hardest working people I've ever had the pleasure to work with. I can't tell you the number of times Mark has come to campus during his off hours to answer a burglar alarm, to answer a fire alarm, to restart a chiller, to check on the power. He does that all the time willingly. There's no better example of the extra work that Mark puts in than the last couple crises we've had at the Power campus. The first one was our fire. So when that fire happened, Mark rushed in there to Power campus, got there, and I might add that it was Mark Howard that found the alleged culprit, not the ASU police. Mark was the one that found him in his car, sleeping, and then we alerted the police and they went and apprehended him. So it was Mark said, hey, I'm going to drive around the campus real quick just to see if the guy's still here. And he was, and Mark found him. So that was one. And then obviously the power outages that we've had at Power. Mark has put in multiple nights, multiple long hours. There was one day he was there almost 24 hours, making sure that the power, because the power was one thing, but then when we have the power restored, we have to put the chillers back on. And that's not just as easy as flicking a switch. Sometimes it takes over 2-3 hours for those chillers to kick in. So Mark would wait there to make sure that they kicked in, and then wait longer after they had started to make sure that the generator or the power on the breaker was holding, so that we would have power for our students, so that they would have air. And then when Mark learned about this, that he was going to be recognized tonight, the first thing he said to me was, no, I don't want it. He goes, this is a team. He goes, I work with a team. We all need to be recognized, because if it wasn't for them, nothing I do would matter. So that sums up Mark Howard perfectly. Mark isn't in it for the recognition. He doesn't do things because he thinks he's going to get honored. He does things because he knows they're the right thing to do. And he knows that it's in the best interest of our students and our organization for him to do that. So it's people like Mark that are behind the scenes that sometimes go unnoticed. Thank you guys for recognizing him tonight, because if it wasn't for people like Mark Howard, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do, as Dr. Wilson says, the voodoo that we do so well. None of that would be possible without people like Mark. So I just wanted to say that about Mark. So.
Thank you, John. I appreciate this. And Dr. Wilson. Short and sweet. Thank you.
Wow.
That was powerful.
We enjoy long speeches. Almost slept through that one. Is this your wife with you?
What's that?
Is this your wife with you?
My girlfriend.
Your girlfriend? Okay, just as good.
I will say one of the things that I am most impressed with Mark about is, and Mr. Casaro said everything, but just Mark's willingness to try to get problems resolved. When we had issues with the chillers, I would wake up at, 3 in the morning, and Mark had texted me at 1:30 at night telling me the chillers are good. So his desire to make sure that things are what we expect them to be is just exceptional. I've known Mark for a long time, and Mark is a gentleman that doesn't seek attention, but is always willing and eager just to get the job done. So thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Go on to item 4, regular minutes of September 9th. A motion?
I'll move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on September 9th, 2024.
Second.
First and second. We'll vote by
Acclamation?
Question by acclamation. You say all in favor.
What was that?
You say all in favor.
Oh, yeah, okay. All in favor? Aye. I don't know if you wanted to abstain.
I abstain.
There we go.
Okay, and I abstain also.
Okay. All right,
Two
motion
abstentions.
carried.
Okay, call the public. Any public here?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on to the next thing, personnel. Okay, Dr. Wilson?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, routinely we have personnel issues in which we're onboarding and offboarding individuals in the organization, individuals that are picking up extra hours based on where we're at in the organization. As we're, growing the associates, we have more need for adjunct instructors. As our fire program continues to grow, adjunct instructors, as we have greater security, adjunct security. So there's nothing uniquely different in this.
Printout.
Other than just what happens in a typical order of our business.
It's okay.
I don't need it. Okay. No? Okay.
Need a motion?
Mr. President, I motion that we accept item 6A.
Okay.
I'll second.
Got a first and a second? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll vote by acclamation.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carried.
We're down to consent agenda, item 7, A through E. I have a motion.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda items A through E.
I'll second.
Got a first and second? Anybody want information about anything? Hearing none, we'll vote by acclamation. Question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. That's all A, B, C, D. Okay. 8, policy revision. Mr. Cabell,
Second read?
second read.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's 3 policy revisions. The first is discipline, suspension, and dismissal of staff members, and we're just changing that so it's consistent with the other publications in the statute. Second one is student concerns and grievances, and we're just clarifying that if you're an adult student, your parent can't file a grievance on your behalf. You have to do it yourself. And the third one is the special instructional programs under the ADA, and that's just clarifying that now it's requests are submitted electronically, not on a paper form.
Okay. Any statements, anybody? Questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. We'll take the question by acclamation.
We need a motion.
Yeah, we need to.
Someone need a motion, please?
Mr. President, I motion that we accept item 8A. I'll second.
The first and second. Now, question by acclamation.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Who's that? Is that Amber?
Gremlins.
Amber, you up there?
Amber here?
No.
Was that her?
Maybe she's trapped in the Ethernet.
She's trapped.
Poltergeist.
Staff report. No,
We're 8B.
I just said 8, so I'm on. There's an
No, we
8B.
have to be.
I'm in a car with a bunch of kids, but I said aye.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
8B.
Okay, we're on 8B. GMP 9.1 contract with Central for the Central Plant. Motion?
I'll move we approve the GMP 9.1 Central Plant.
I second.
Okay, Dr. Wilson?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, we have multiple projects occurring on this main campus in terms of the renovation. If you remember, we came to you probably 6 weeks ago for GMP 9.0, and that was the GMP to do the long lead items for the central plant. So at the time you approved the procurement of the chillers and the powerhouse that is going to need to be replaced when we get to the central plant replacement. We did that purposefully because of the lead time. We're back to you now with the second phase of that central plant remodel and refurbishing, in fact, the replacement. As a reminder, the central plant is what is the chillers that runs the heat and the air throughout the whole of the organization. The central plant piping and tubing is run underground. And so what this is a procurement and a GMP to begin that process. It will come to you in two phases. This is the first of two phases so that we can begin the project. The project is expected to begin, I believe, the end of October. And the totality of the project, by the time we're done with all of the central plant upgrades and remodeling, will probably be in 2026. And so it's a bit of a lengthy project, partly because as they replace, they obviously are going to have to tear up and replace and then refill and tear up and replace and refill the underground piping. And so that's going to take a bit of time. So this is just the first half of that actual work and labor and parts needed to replace the piping, the underground piping, and the central plant remodel. And we'll bring the second GMP to you probably right after the first of the year. In this, as always, in our GMPs is the life cycle analysis cost. So remember, part of what we talked about a number of years ago is to make sure that we're creating a life cycle analysis in which we're continually updating and renewing parts and materials and equipment, so we never get in the situation we're in right now where we've had years of neglect and we're having to fix everything at one time. But we also wanted to parse out and let you know that in the remodel, there's a life cycle analysis cost associated with it that we should have been doing independent of the remodel. That's a bit less in this GMP simply because this has to just be replaced. But you'll see that the total GMP includes that life cycle analysis cost estimate, just for your information.
Okay, and we're improving the 5 million?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
A question, please.
Is there anyone from Chase to speak
We
to
do.
this?
We have my main man, Brody.
The question I have has to do with the current piping. It says we're replacing it. Are we going to leave that in service until the new plant is up and running? Or are you going to kind of do a stretch and then fire it up? And
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, is your question regarding the underground piping?
that is correct.
Okay, so what we plan on doing is that in a series of 9 different legs, so we'll replace approximately 300 feet, and then we'll kind of leapfrog, and we'll do 300 linear feet section at a time. So we will
At
have,
what point do you abandon the old piping? At the end of the project?
yes,
So the old piping's going to be abandoned in the ground?
yes.
And what kind of materials are we using on this piping?
So
and
we are gonna
what is
use-
the expected lifespan?
Approximately 20 years. We're going to be using carbon steel for the underground piping. 20 to 50 years, depending on how the equipment is maintained, but you can expect a minimum of 20 years.
All right, thank you.
And we will have AC all the time, correct? Because you're going to go between the old and the new and back and forth.
Yes,
correct?
there
Okay.
will be a minimum of 2 shutdowns that we will coordinate with the facility. We need to provide a temporary electrical switch when we have temporary cooling that we're going to provide. So we'll probably do that off hours or on the weekend. We need to put in a 1,000 amp switch on the SES, so we'll need to shut down the power to the campus. And then when we install that switch, that will be a shutdown. And then when we change over to the new chillers, that will be another shutdown. So we'll have a minimum of 2 coordinated shutdowns for the facility.
So they occur at temperate times of the year?
I'm sorry?
Will they be during the temperate periods of the year or
Yes.
next summer sometime?
Yeah, the strategy that we have, unfortunately, we're limited to the capacity of the current SES to 1,000 amps, and all we can get out of the SES is about 850 tons of cooling. So we have to be smart when we shut down the central plant, which will be in the shoulder season, not in the peak season, because currently your central plant is giving you 1,500 tons of cooling. Your new central plant will provide 1,860 tons of cooling. Our temporary cooling will only provide 800 tons, right? So we will need to make sure we're not in the peak season. We cannot be doing this in the summertime. It'll likely be this time next year when we're taking the central plant offline, providing temporary cooling, and that process will be roughly 4 months.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, take a vote, take the question by acclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Industry certificates for the 24-25 year.
I move to approve the item 9C, industry certifications, FY.
It's 8C.
That's 8? Oh, 8C.
Yeah, 8C.
Industry certifications.
I second.
All right. Any questions on it? Glad to see all these applications or.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, if we could speak to it though, just for a second, because I do believe it's important that you understand the rationale behind some of this. And to do that, I'd like to ask Dr. Doolin to speak to the certificates and the rationale behind.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here as always. If you take a look at the document in front of you on the certifications, this certification document contains 2 different lines. You'll see as it goes through the license or certification, and then on the far right, you will see on the approved EVIT quality list. If you remember several months ago, you voted on our quality assessment tool, and on that quality assessment, it had a link to what certifications we were looking at is considered quality. So that is what that far right link, that far right list is. It's all of the certifications that we deem as a quality certification, and it says no on the ones that we do not recognize as a quality certification. But those certifications are still approved license and certifications because they meet the requirements for ADE. So that's why you have 2 different lists that you're approving. The one is for what we're offering in each program that aligns to ADE, and then the one on the far right is the approved EVIT quality list.
I have a question.
Okay, David?
I'm just quickly looking at the dental assisting on the first page, and 2 out of the 3, one of them is new to ADE, 2 of them are approved by ADE, but there are no, I don't know, I'm looking at basic life support, bloodborne pathogens. So we won't be offering those?
No, we will be offering them. That's why they're on the license and certification list. The students will be receiving those, but they're not considered quality. And some of the rationale behind not considering those quality is both of those certifications can be done in a day or less, basically.
Yeah, okay. Have our advisory boards weighed in on that?
Yes.
And
This has
what
gone before you guys, as well as our CTE partners and our advisory boards, and the instructors.
They concur with the no's?
They concur that they're needed, but that they're not a quality as far as spending a year, 2.5 hours a day to get basic life support would not be considered a quality indicator.
Well, yeah.
So that's the rationale that was used.
But you still expect students to get that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And if I'm understanding the chart correctly, all of the programs have at least one license, which is quality for both EVIT and on the ADE approved list?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think part of what we're charged with too, Mr. President, members of the governing board, is if you remember part of the audit, and some of the findings in the audit were that you are ultimately responsible for the quality and the content of the CTE program across the CTED. And one of the things they asked for is for us to demonstrate the ability to indicate that we're working collaboratively with our partners to build that capacity to increase quality. And I think Dr. Doolin and her team have done a great job this past year doing just that, having a collaborative effort in which we're acknowledging there's still certificates that are going to be needed for lots of different reasons, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are the quality that we ultimately want. And so for us to kind of take a step in that direction, I think is good for our students, good for our community, and also is in alignment with what was charged by us from the Auditor General's office.
All right.
Any more? We do have a motion, don't we?
We do. We have a motion and a second. We just need-
Okay, let's vote. We'll take the question by acclamation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, call for executive session.
Yes, do we need to have one?
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, we would like to have a brief executive session, but what I'd ask is that you all just stay there, and we'll ask everybody else, I'm sorry, to just step out. It's going to take like 4.5 minutes. It'd take longer for us to walk into the fishbowl than to just stay here and do the conversation.
All right.
Especially for me.
Did we do that on public?
Public feed.
You did a motion in public.
Did the motion in public, but not the
But you
vote.
didn't
But we
do a
didn't vote.
Correct.
And we need
So
to
we
put it
need to
back
go
on.
back.
Got a plug got pulled a little too soon.
Yeah, we need to go back to public and vote.
And Amber's on there somewhere too.
Well, this can take, we can walk over there and back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we could have, yeah.
except for Watkins. He doesn't want to do that. Oh, here we are. All
Well,
right,
as
we
long
need to
as
call for a
it's
vote.
going out
I'll
to
call for the
the,
vote.
Okay, call for the question for
I think we ought
executive
to do it
session.
all over again.
Just
for the
do the
sake-
motion.
Okay, I move that we convene to an executive session for discussion and consultation for legal advice with our attorney.
I second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are
Now we're
moving
good.
into executive session.
bring the meeting back to order, and we have staff reports.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, just two quick things here. One is a reminder, next week is our fall break, begins our fall break. It's a 2-week break. The district office will be open throughout that time with staggered staffing, so we'll still be here if you need anything, but most of the staff won't be here for those 2 weeks. And then when we get back from fall break, we start up with, Dr. Doolin and myself and her deans have been doing some of the campus visits, and so we're going to start bringing some data to you in terms of some of the information that we're compiling, not just from the campus visits, but some of the aggregation data that we've seen over the past year, so you guys can begin kind of getting a more informed idea of how we're doing as a CTED before you're asked to approve programs at the end of this semester. So just to kind of give you a little foreshadow of what's to come. Other than that, that's all I have.
Someone else in charge of that. Okay, we'll go to closing items. A, calendar. We have the next meeting on October 14th. Dr. Wilson, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Is that October 14th? That's after your break, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Monday after we get right back from break.
The first day you get back?
Yep. Thank you. Yes.
Welcome, first day.
Yes.
All right. Anybody want anything on that? Hearing none?
I move to adjourn.
What?
He moves to
Oh,
adjourn.
he's already done it. He's done
Jump
it.
into the next line. I will second.
Acclamation, please.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody want to stay? All right.
Did you have this?
That for a second.